Okay. Now I'm going to admit all.
Let me know when. Welcome, everyone. We're just letting people in now. So we'll take a few minutes, let more people join, then we'll start the meeting. Hi, all. If you're just joining, welcome. And we'll get started in about 15 seconds.
Oh.
Okay, let's begin. Thank you all for joining. Welcome to the Coastal Conservancy's Grant Assistance Office Hours for the Central Coast region. My name is Rachel Couch. I'm with the program in the Central Coast here, and I work mostly on Santa Barbara County and Monterey Bay projects. And as folks are coming in, please add your name and organization and location in the chat as we get started. We are recording this webinar and we will share slides with attendees. If you're just joining, please put your name in the chat, organization, and location, if you would. And people are still coming in, so we are going to go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to introduce Coastal Conservancy staff on this webinar. As I said, I'm Rachel Couch, and Trish Chapman is here. She is our regional manager for the Central Coast program. We also have Irvin Tang, Lexi Carruthers, Aaron Gravely, Costula Valianos, and Hillary Hill. So for those of you just joining, please put your name, organization, and location in the chat. This is the Coastal Conservancy's Central Coast Region's office hours to go over Coastal Conservancy funding allocation from the 2024 Climate Bond, also known as Prop 4, and how to apply for grant funds. We are not going to be covering the Explore the Coast, Coastal Stories, or Sea Otter grant programs. Those programs have annual requests for proposals and are separate from our general Coastal Conservancy grant making process. We're going to have about a 15-minute slide presentation and then leave the remainder of the hour open to questions. The Q&A session will consist of 3 breakout rooms, and we will explain that after the presentation. So for those of you just coming in, please put your name and organization and location in the chat. A little technical housekeeping, please keep your microphone muted unless you have been called on to speak. And if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A. We will not be writing answers to the questions during this session, but we will do so afterwards and email the Q&A to everybody. If you do not see an option for Q&A on your screen, please enter your question in the chat and start it with the letters QA to make it easy for us to combine with the Q&A later on. And if you have any technical difficulties, let us know in the chat. And with that, thank you all for joining. I'm going to hand it over to Lexi Carruthers, who's going to start the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Erin, could you switch to the next slide? So the Coastal Conservancy is a state agency that works along all of California's coast and coastal watersheds. Our vision is a beautiful, restored, and accessible coast for all Californians now and in the future. We do this work in partnership with others, including all of you. And today's office hours focus on the Central Coast region, which goes from San Mateo County north down to Santa Barbara County. Next slide. We're focusing today on the 2024 Climate Bond, Prop 4, passed by voters in November 2024. It provides $10 billion statewide for climate and natural resource projects. The Conservancy will receive $948 million over the next 5 to 10 years. Today, we'll talk about the 3 relevant programs for the Central Coast, which are coastal flooding, coastal resilience, and wildfire resilience. You'll see total allocations and this year's proposed budget for each program on this slide. Just note that these are estimates and subject to change. Coastal flooding and resilience funding will ramp up slowly. Most wildfires funding has already been allocated. The climate bond continues the work we've done with recent general fund dollars and aligns with our strategic plan. Projects that address climate change and benefit vulnerable communities will be prioritized. Now I'll explain the 3 program areas. Next slide. First, there's $350 million for coastal flood management. This funds projects addressing flooding due to sea level rise or combined coastal river flooding. It must be in developed shoreline areas, including places with critical infrastructure, and will prioritize nature-based multi-benefit approaches that increase public safety and resilience. Next slide. The bond also includes $415 million for coastal resilience projects, $85 million of which is specifically for the SF Bay. This is broader scope than coastal flooding. Projects can include dunes, wetlands, coastal forests, watersheds, public access, and trails. We prioritize innovative, multi-benefit, and community-supported projects, especially those that help vulnerable communities. Next slide. The wildfire resilience funding is focused on forest management in the wildland-urban interface, and this prioritizes workforce development and career pathways for people from disadvantaged communities. Next slide. So what makes a strong proposal? Getting Prop 4 funding will be competitive, especially for coastal resilience, where need far exceeds available funds. So let's talk about what makes a strong proposal. First, advancing equity. At least 40% of climate bond funds must provide meaningful and direct benefits to disadvantaged communities, and 10% must benefit severely disadvantaged communities. This aligns with the Conservancy's strategic goal to fund projects that benefit systemically excluded communities. And then next, tribal engagement. At a minimum, projects should consult with tribes and reflect their input in design or implementation. More competitive proposals go further by including tribal leadership, providing access to or ownership of land, or compensating tribe partners for restoration and stewardship work. And then multi-benefit projects. These are projects that address multiple goals like habit restoration and public access. These tend to score higher and they make the state dollars go further. Community support, we want to see that projects are a priority for the communities that they aim to benefit, especially disadvantaged or vulnerable communities. We'll be looking for evidence of direct community input and support. Long-term impact, bond-funded projects should deliver benefits that last. A common benchmark is 20 years of sustained impact. This is a little bit flexible, but this should be an overall benchmark. And then alignment with our strategic plan. Projects should advance one or more of our 4 strategic goals, which are prioritizing equity, which we talked about, enjoying the coast, protecting and restoring the coast, and climate-ready projects. Next slide. So some eligible project types, some examples of allowed project are land acquisition, project-specific planning, feasibility design, community engagement, implementation, which is construction, workforce monitoring, and then some low priority or ineligible types are general or regional planning, standalone research or tool development, and monitoring not tied to a funded project. Next slide. So who's eligible? Public agencies, local, state, federal, 501c3 nonprofits, federally recognized tribes, or non-federally recognized tribes who have a fiscal sponsor. Next slide. So this is a diagram of our application process. We accept applications anytime. There's no need to wait for a request for proposals. So your first step would be to submit a brief pre-application, and then to that we will respond with next steps. Step 2 would be if you're invited, you'd submit a full application when you're ready. We'll review that and either recommend you for funding or request more information or defer based on funding availability. Approved projects go through due diligence, and then we issue a notice to proceed. You can request technical assistance from us at any stage, so just ask if you need any help. Next slide. So here is our contact info. Feel free to take a screenshot. We will now go into breakout rooms by project type, and you can choose your own room. We'll have one breakout room for coastal flooding and sea level rise, one breakout room for wildfire resilience, and then coastal resilience. You'll just stay in the main room. And if tech doesn't cooperate, just let us know and we'll manually assign you to each room. And if anyone has any detailed questions, we may follow up separately or move you into a one-on-one breakout room. So we will open the rooms now.
Did you hit that, Lexi?
I think that it says that you're in charge of the breakout rooms on my end.
Merit getting it as an option.
Is anyone else?
Yes, agreed. It says that Trish manages the rooms.
Okay. This is unfortunate. So I think we're gonna just go ahead and we'll start taking Q&A with everybody here because there does not appear to be a way. We have breakout rooms, but no way to open them. Microsoft Teams is just not as much fun as Zoom. So go ahead and use the Q&A, or you can raise your hand if you have questions. I see one question from Sam Hersberg about a previous wildfire resilience grant that was submitted. I'm going to say that Costello Valionis will look at that question and the previous proposal and get back to you about whether it makes sense to submit it again.
I think I just fixed the breakout rooms.
Oh, you did?
I'm gonna open them up. Well,
Oh yeah, there you go.
I just said someone else is managing it now. Did you just take it back, Trish?
I did not, but it now it says open rooms. So
Okay.
you should soon get a choice to either go to, if you stay here, this is for coastal resilience funding, which is sort of our most broad funding. Coastal flooding and sea level rise type projects is the first breakout room. Wildfire resilience, second one. There's 2 other breakout rooms. Don't go to those. Those are empty rooms where we may send people for one-on-one conversations if needed. All right, hopefully you will get a choice of breakout rooms. Yes. So we'll give you a couple minutes to choose what room you want to be into. I see Costello just went to the wildfire one. Hillary and Rachel, can you get to
It's
coastal
not
flooding?
letting me go to coastal flooding, but other people are going there.
I don't see it. Let's see rooms.
So challenging.
All the
I
other
don't
ones
see
say
the-
join, but the coastal flooding doesn't say join.
I don't see the rooms either.
Me either.
I think you need to click the 3 dots at the top where it says more and then select breakout rooms. They should then show up on the right-hand side and you may be able to see the room and click join.
Oh, yeah.
More. I don't,
Okay.
I'm, I don't have a more option on mine.
Me either. I'm on my phone, so maybe that's why.
Okay, we can assign people who aren't in a room. Let me see.
Did you say coastal resilience was the first room?
Yeah, you're in it if that's what you want.
And the second room was sea level rise and
There's a room for coastal flooding and sea level rise, and one for wildfire resilience.
Can you put me in wildfire, please? Thank you. It's Christina McGinnis. Thanks.
If we're interested in coastal access, does that fall more under this room or the flooding?
This room.
Okay, thank you.
Ugh. I really, really dislike Teams.
I agree.
I cannot. I can click on your name and it won't give me in the breakout room management screen, but it will not actually give me the option to put you in the room.
Oh, thank you for trying. Well, we have Em from our team attending and she was able to get in. So I'll just fall back on her notes then. Thank you though.
And that was for wildfire?
Yeah, for the Wildfire Resilience Collaborative. Yeah.
Okay. Aaron, I don't know how Hillary managed to take the breakout room management, but if I get out of there, can you take it and see if you can figure it out while I can start to
Yes, I can try.
answer people's questions. Okay, so would establish, I'm seeing a question about is Allison Hunter still here? Or did she go to the coastal flooding room? Okay, she thinks she went to coastal flooding. All right, well, folks who are here in the coastal resilience room, yeah, just you can raise your hand or put questions in the Q&A. And how can we help you? What did you want to know? Candace, go ahead.
Hi, Trish. So I was wondering, with regards to the different buckets, with coastal flood management and coastal resilience, are there going to be a set, like, is the Coastal Conservancy going to fund a certain amount of money under flood management and coastal resilience? Because I have a project that could go into maybe either bucket, but I'm just trying to select the right bucket to maybe be more competitive, right? Because the coastal resilience one is a big bucket.
Yeah, you don't pick the funding. We pick the funding, so you just apply for your project. We do expect that based on we've already received many pre-applications that fall into the coastal resilience category. So we think that the ones that fit the funding restrictions of the coastal flood management, sea level rise type projects are going to be less competitive this year, just because we haven't seen as many projects coming in the door. But we're the ones that will decide how to allocate the funding. It's not something you don't need to worry about that.
Okay, so am I right in hearing that just write the most competitive grant, and whether or not you have coastal resilience and coastal flood components, that will be decided on, or we decide that in our application?
You should apply for the project that you want to do, and you'll do a pre-app first, and then we'll tell you. Then we'll let you know, like, are there parts of it that are the best fit for us? Based on other applications coming at us, like, we'll give you an idea of if we were to fund it, what possible funding level we might have, and then you could decide which pieces to move forward with. There's a significant back and forth period usually between a pre-app and if we invite you for a full app.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Samuel Hirschberg? Sam?
Hi. Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Number one was about the San Bernardino Mountain Community Wildfire Resilience Capacity Project. that we proposed about 2 years ago. And
Oh,
it was rejected, but I guess from what you said, you're going to look at it again and get back to us?
I said I'm gonna yeah, I asked Costula, who manages the wildfire program for the Central Coast, to take a look at the application and follow up with you.
Thank you very much. And we may have some other projects, but I would appreciate a copy of the slides that if you could share that, because the presentation went very quickly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we will share the slides, and we're also recording this, so we'll share the recording.
Thank you so much.
Jacob?
Yes, thank you. I had a question just to make sure for land acquisition. Is this this would be the right place to be?
Yep. I mean, yes, this is the best place to be for land acquisition.
Okay. I just seen previously that, land acquisition, planning and implementation kind of would be eligible for this types of funding. And so I was just wondering if you have any information on that in terms of like the amounts and timeline, but mainly like what needs to be in place before submitting a pre-application for that. Because I'm Moots and Land Trust, I'm the grants manager. And we have different properties that are at different stages, like one where we're submitting a SALT grant and we're moving on to the next level. And others that are in different phases. So I'm just wondering like when is the right time for various properties?
Yeah, so in general, I would say that you want to communicate with us earlier rather than later, so that if it is something that seems like a good fit, but it's a ways out, then we know that and can kind of be planning for that. And also, so earlier that it's not a good fit. Like if it's not a good fit, you know that, and you're not kind of expecting that we're going to fund it and then find out late in your process that that wouldn't be true. And so like we say that we will get back to you. We will get back to you within 60 days on your pre-application, but what we get back with is not necessarily a yes or no. Sometimes it like with an acquisition, it might be yeah, we're interested, but let us know, when you have when you have more of the money committed, or if you're still waiting on a land seller commitment, or, it depends on the details of the project, but we would kind of give you an idea of that at that point. And if you have a whole bunch of them, and one possibility is that you set up a consultation meeting with us in advance, and then we could narrow down which ones you actually give us a pre-app for. And so the budget is still in process, but the coastal resilience money that was in the governor's budget, that by our agency's internal allocation, there is about a little over $7 million for the Central Coast this year. So it's going to be exceedingly competitive.
Did you say $7 million
Yeah.
for the Central Coast?
Yeah. Yeah. So that also just gives you an idea of, a $7 million application to us will not get funded because we're going to be spreading that money out around the region. I mean, it won't get funded at that amount. We might offer some smaller amount.
Okay, so the numbers at the beginning, like the three, because this is what I've seen in multiple presentations now, like 350 million for coastal flood management. That's for the state.
That's for the I mean, yeah, I'm gonna answer that, and then I'm gonna have you raise your hand if you have additional follow-up questions and move on to others. But so the numbers at the beginning, and Aaron, I don't know if you're able to bring up that slide, but that might be helpful. The $350 million was statewide over the entire period of the bond, and the bond is supposed to like roll out to us over 10 years was the plan. And then, so, that's more like $35 million a year statewide. And actually, so in the governor's budget, so the coastal resilience money was $330 million. In total, the governor's budget for this year had $30 million for statewide. Okay, thanks, Aaron. I can't see the, okay, Esme, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I also kind of had a budget question. So you said 7 million for the year. Does that start like when the fiscal year starts in July, or does that start during the calendar year?
Starts in the fiscal year. That become like we don't have it yet. We don't have Prop 4 funding yet, but and we won't actually even have it in July. But anyways, it's basically starting in the fiscal year. Just the bureaucracy will take a while.
And then does the Coastal Conservancy typically just like fund projects until they're out of budget, or do you try to like make it last throughout the whole length of the year? Like, is it more effective to get your grant application in like early in the fiscal year, I guess is what I'm asking.
I do think we will run out of money this year. Yeah. So, but also, in our experience, projects take longer than proponents expect. So next year's money might work for you also.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Joanna?
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to see if there's an opportunity. There was a reference of being able to have like specific questions about applications that are active right now. So I don't know if there's an opportunity during this webinar to do that, or if it's better to set up a separate meeting with you guys.
Yeah. This is about San Gregorio?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you, well, that was supposed to be an option, but I'm not sure we can get you into the one-on-one breakout room. Okay. If we could, I would just send you an errand there to talk about that. But
I can follow up via email.
I can follow up by email to set an appointment with Joanna.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I haven't had time to respond to your email, Joanna.
No problem. Don't worry.
But that's what I was gonna do is pass it on to Erin.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Candace? You're on mute, Candace.
Hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Do we know if the $7 million for the Central Coast is going to be divided equally across the three buckets? Wildfire, coastal flooding, and coastal resilience, or is that?
No, that's the coastal resilience bucket. Okay. There's 6 point something was the estimated amount for coastal flooding. And then what the legislature has already done is so we got in the whole bond, $33 million for wildfire. They have already appropriated to us 30 million of it. So the wildfire money is not going to roll out over 10 years. It's going to be, a big injection all at once, and then we'll be out of wildfire money. And, that we may get other forms, but Prop 4, the climate bond, wildfire money will end more quickly than the other sources. Okay, so I'm seeing another question from Sam in the Q&A about how far inland are low-cost accommodations being considered? Is it the entire San Mateo County? no low-cost accommodations in our plan. The ideal is within a mile of the coast. However, that is, we understand that's sometimes just cost prohibitive. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's some indication that when we say coast for the overnight accommodations, we mean quite coastal.
If I could follow up on that,
sure.
I'm just curious why it doesn't follow the coastal zone jurisdiction, which is, up to 10 miles inland. I think it's 5 miles inland in the south.
In the south of San Mateo County?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, it does follow I should have said within a mile of the coastal zone.
A mile of the coastal zone. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
George?
Hey, Trish. Going back to the buckets allocated for Central Coast region for the wildfire resilience bucket of that 30.9 million, how much for Central Coast?
That has not been allocated regionally at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there was, oh no, Allison wasn't in the room anymore. So I'm not seeing any other questions in the Q&A. Let me check the chat. No. So does anybody else have any questions for us? Sam?
Yeah, we have a couple of potential projects at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. One is the restoration of the Pillar Point Marsh, which could also be a coastal resilience project. Another one is improving the main entrance overlook, which was previously a Coastal Conservancy project, but we decided to focus on the coastal trail instead, and that project went by the wayside in the interim, but it continues to degrade. Just wanted to dust those two off and ask if they sound like they might be candidates. The Pillar Point Marsh is the second largest wetland on the coast of San Mateo County.
Okay. Yeah, they both would be eligible, and whether they're competitive is into the details of kind of what was on that competitive slide. How much is the project a multi-benefit project? What's tribal involvement and empowerment in either of those? Is it serving a disadvantaged or vulnerable community, which I think might be a hard one at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve? So without knowing the details, I can't tell you if it's competitive, but it's both are definitely eligible.
Thank you.
I thought I saw another hand pop up. Okay,
Yeah.
Candace.
With regards to the involvement and empowerment of tribes, is there guidance on the website, or because how do we quantify that as meaningful engagement and empowerment?
Yeah, we have resources linked in our application guide and on our website about engagement, and we can also potentially help guide you, like if you send in a pre-app, could help you with that. I'm sorry, Sue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm on my phone, and that's always fun, especially with Teams. with regard to tribal consultation and tribal involvement, you mentioned recognized tribes, unrecognized tribes, as long as they're working with a fiscal agent. Is there a specific fiscal agent that does tribal work, or is it any like 501c3 type fiscal agent?
Well, first let me just back up and say that's if the tribe wants to be the grantee. So we can only give a grant to what the government sees as a I don't know, like a fiduciary entity. And so so federally recognized tribes are seen that way. Non-federally recognized ones are not. So some of them have created their own land trusts. Some of them partner with a nonprofit to be their fiscal agent. And there are nonprofits that do that. But I think your question was more on engagement. And for that, they don't have to be an entity from our perspective. Now, if you, for instance, were doing a grant, you got a grant from us and you were going to involve a tribe, a non-federally recognized tribe, and pay them for things, you might have the same issue that we have, that they would need some fiscal agent to make that. If like you're a government agency, you'd run into that problem. An NGO might not.
Okay.
So,
got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Anybody else have questions?
Going on to the community support and prioritization, do you want support letters, or is just mentioning, this is part of a coalition or a collaborative that's prioritized effort sufficient?
At the pre-app stage, it's sufficient to just tell us that. So there's a interagency group that's working on the Prop 4 rollout and including how we are going to be expected to document benefits to disadvantaged or vulnerable communities. And that's still being worked out. But I do think it will require, yes, support letters directly from members of the community or organizations of the community. We would be, we do not currently require support letters in our full application, but I'm expecting that will become an addition at that phase.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions folks have?
Actually, I did have one because I came in a little bit late. The timing of pre-applications, is it a rolling basis? Are there, you
No.
mentioned full bucket of money, but
yeah, it's a rolling basis, and as is the full app. So like I would say, you need to have a project that's clear enough that we understand it when you submit a pre-app, but you don't have to have all the ducks in a row. And what that would mean if you submit the pre-app at a stage like that is there's potentially a longer lag between that and when we ask for a full app. While we understand more about your project, but the advantage of it is you get us thinking about your project and thinking about that when we're thinking about the amount of money we have this year and thinking forward to next year and trying to among the options determine our priorities. So I would recommend pre-apps earlier than later.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. George?
Trish, are there priorities for acquisition, planning, or implementation, or is the Conservancy viewing all of those equally as priorities?
Yeah, we view them pretty equally. I mean, you know, everybody loves the ribbon cuttings of a construction project or an acquisition project, but we're also really aware that more and more agencies won't fund initial planning, and we will. And if everybody stopped funding conceptual plans and preliminary plans, we wouldn't get any projects done. So, yeah, so we think planning is important.
Great, thank you.
Candace?
The nature of the competitiveness is weighing on me because my project is large. It's for the St. Inez River estuary, and I've been discussing this with the my engineering team, because it is kind of like a once in a generation opportunity to do restoration there. So I don't think it's like we're going to be doing enhancements at another stage in 10 years from now. But I'm just wondering, to keep it competitive, do we divide certain elements into tasks? So if the ask is too big, if the Coastal Conservancy wanted to take certain elements off, that we could do that? Or is that stuff that we will tease out during pre-application?
Yeah, I mean, if you make it clear to us what you think the like priority, or if it had to be phased, what your recommendation would be, then we would consider that. But like if for that project, or anybody on this call, if you have a project that you submit that where the budget is not one that we can do with you, like it's a big project, but it's a project that is a high priority for us, we determine as a high priority, then we would come back and work with you. And I mean, we do get large projects done, but large projects take a long time because of the fundraising, and it will take multiple agencies. It very well may take a new federal administration, because most large projects need federal money. Like, you're just not going to get there without it. And it's just it's hard to know exactly how much federal money we're going to see coming to these kinds of projects in the next years. But like the first thing is to get us thinking about it, and we actually have been thinking about the San Ynez project. But and then we can work with you about, you know, how to phase the way through the planning, and then like what's realistic about how to get construction done. And things change dramatically, right? Like at certain points, we don't have any money. And then, you know, like in 2022, they gave us $500 million in general fund money. Now, they did take most of that away a few months later, but it's just like you can't not move. You shouldn't not move forward on a bigger vision just because of what today's funding amount is.
Right.
Any other questions? Sam?
Yes, yeah. I had the question about, you mentioned this funding is going to be multi-year. Can you provide some greater clarity as to how long the funding, and it will be the same amount of funding each year?
So we were asked to submit a plan for the bond money, which we did. It was a 10-year plan with roughly similar amounts each year. But what we say, and then what the governor says, so that was the plan, that's what they approved. But then, so they've already changed that for the wildfire money. And then the legislature can also change it at any point, either up or down. and then subsequent years we would end up adjusting based on what happens. So each budget cycle is, that's the likely starting point is numbers similar to what we showed on the slide. But one thing right now, we are not making any decisions about the Prop 4 money until we see what actually comes out in the budget. The other thing that can happen in the budget is that additional constraints can be put on the money. They can't approve, they can't not follow the restrictions of Prop 4, but they can narrow them further in the legislature. So they don't usually, but it's possible. It does happen. Anybody else? Hi, Rachel, you're back.
Yes.
I'll just say on the Vandenberg Space Force Base, there's a lot in play up there. There's the Lower San Ynez River. There's the whole Sentinel Landscapes thing. There's private money that's going to come in from SpaceX. It's really going to be interesting. Potential public and private funding is going to come down because of all the launch activity. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, if nobody else has questions, I mean, we will be here till noon if you want to hang around. Okay, Sam.
You mentioned that the wildfire money is approved but was changed. Can you clarify? Was it increased? Was it decreased? Is it prioritized sooner than later?
Yes. So the wildfire money, we got roughly, we were allocated roughly 33 million in the bond. We had a similar plan to roll that out over a number of years. So I think it was also on the 10-year cycle, that I'm not 100% sure. But so roughly probably 3 or 4 million a year. And instead, the legislature this spring changed that this year we're getting 30.9 million of the 33. So almost all of it. And not only did they change that amount, they've already passed it and had the governor sign it as early action money. And so that's what I was saying, that the wildfire money is gonna come faster, be spent faster, and then we wouldn't have specific wildfire money from the bond after that. We may have it from other sources because it's going to continue to be a state priority. Jacob?
Yeah, sorry, I had me a little bit ago, so I apologize if you already said this. You can just, but just when I had asked about the land acquisition before, I was just going to follow up because you had said they might review and there's like different criteria which might make it a stronger kind of proposal around land acquisition. I was just wondering if there's anywhere to find any of those criteria, or is it really just about like talking with someone?
Well, it's kind of the same criteria as what was on the slide. What makes a strong proposal? I mean, since you work for the Amundsen Land Trust, one of the first questions we ask now when somebody comes and wants us to help them buy land is, what is the tribal involvement? So, being a tribal project, you're already in a more competitive bucket in terms of acquisitions. But then looking at what are the benefits that come out of it, and those can be benefits beyond the tribal ownership, important habitats. Will there be any other kind of access for the public? Looking at landscape connections, things like that. We also we pay some attention to investing our acquisition dollars across the Central Coast region. So if we've invested a lot in one area, we still may not participate in a project that would otherwise be a high priority. And acquisition projects tend to be some of the most expensive. So we're just gonna, there's only so many that we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Someone asked in the chat when the recording will be available. Do we have a timeline for that yet?
I believe it takes at least a day or so till it becomes available to us, and then we have to get it posted. So hopefully next week. The reason I'm hesitating is I'm on vacation next week, and I'm actually not sure if I'm the only one that would have that the recording would come to, since I organized the meeting. But that is something we will follow up, and our goal would be to have it done up like early next week, and we'll send a follow-up email to everybody who registered, whether they came or not. Any other questions?
I have a question about land acquisition.
Okay.
In terms of evaluating a proposal, would zoning be a factor in evaluating the viability? Because sometimes a project may need to be rezoned if it can be acquired, right? Do you know what I mean? Chicken or the egg? So I know generally with grants, it's best to have all those ducks in a row, as you said. However, that's a kind of a heavy lift for local jurisdictions. So in some ways it becomes a priority if there's a likelihood of the project being able to be funded. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so you mean an acquisition for a certain purpose, and the purpose isn't consistent with current zoning.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's not a deal breaker, but it makes it's an element of uncertainty in a project that, makes it less competitive. But if there's other compelling things about it, that it's not a deal breaker. I think it might lead to like wanting to hear from the body that would need to change that, like that, is there support for that? It might lead to us wanting to better understand the risk of that it kind of underlies that.
Yeah, understood. It's dicey because if it involves private property, there's legal implications for local entities. So it's probably something we can discuss in a side conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, well, we have 5 minutes left. See that the coastal flooding people are back. Are the wildfire people okay? Eve?
Hi, Trish and Rachel and everybody. Yeah, I'm here with the County of Santa Barbara Public Works Department, and we have a couple of projects along the California Coastal Trail that we're considering, and I think we'll probably follow up and like maybe schedule a one-on-one consult because I'm not sure which one maybe is the best fit for the program. But are you receptive to doing like a multi-pronged approach for the coastal trail, or should the projects be like in one location? Or could we kind of maybe group a couple of different locations as access points for the trail under one application?
Yeah, you definitely can do that under the pre-app. And then I think what we would, when we see the details, or you could also maybe get this resolved in a pre-consultation. But we might either like narrow the list and say, you know, we're interested in these, but not these other ones. Or tell you it's fine to keep them all grouped, or something. You know, probably those are the two options, but it's fine to send it in that way as the pre-app.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
It's my cat. I don't know if you can hear him. Any other questions? I'm about to be visited. Hi, the cat.
There he is.
Sit over here, Buzz. Okay. Anybody else got any last questions?
There were some people who couldn't get in somehow. There was some authorization problem. So I'll follow up.
Interesting. Okay. They registered, but they couldn't get in?
Not sure. I just got a text. So
yeah. Yeah. We're not allowed to have Zoom anymore, and we're doing our best with Teams, but it's a bit of a challenge. Okay, well, I think folks are signing off. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm just
Thank
gonna
you.
go ahead.
Hey,
Yeah, thank
Monique.
you. Hey, Monique. Good to see you.
Thank you, guys. Doing good. Thinking about projects.
Woo!
All right, talk with you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, it's just our AI.
Bot.
I'm gonna
Our
end the
bot.
event, which I think will still leave us here. I hope.